All right, let's jump right into this. Today's explainer is, well, it's a truly fascinating, kind of grim, dark fable that uses Fichtstein dialectic to expand on a deeply unsettling narrative. We're looking at this concept called dark apotheosis and the incredibly bleak philosophy behind it, the creed of negation. We're going to see exactly how seeking ultimate stability, trying to avoid the messy friction of life, actually ends up completely murdering human potential. So we'll be analyzing 3 distinct parables and phantoms today, really using them as metaphors for modern existential stagnation.
Picture the mythic scene that kicks this whole thing off. Imagine the last pope, right? He's raising this staff of dry parchment to utter a desperate prophecy just before reality completely shatters. It's his final gasping warning against this creed of negation, and as he speaks, the pale light of what's known as the Great Noon fractures. Out of this broken reality, our core themes physically manifest. This isn't just some fantasy story. It's a really dramatic visualization of a very real philosophical trap we fall into when we become terrified of the future.
And this beautifully captures the core philosophical conflict we're digging into today. On one hand, you have Johann Gottlieb Fichte's concept of the absolute I. This is all about vital human striving, active ambition, a living zenith, what Fichte called Streben. It's the engine of pushing forward, creating, and actually engaging with the messiness of being alive. But pitted violently against that is the creed of negation. This creed, it is the absolute erasure of potential. We're talking total stagnation, bitter cynicism, and just a hollow void. It's this overwhelming desire to just stop the clock, silence all the noise, and by doing that, you're ultimately choosing death over the friction of living.
Section 1. The Creed of Pure Negation.
So let's see how this abstract philosophy takes on these terrifying, tangible forms. Out of that fractured pale light we just talked about, 3 horrifying phantoms materialize right in front of the sovereign. And each of these phantoms perfectly represents a different way we, both as individuals and as societies, basically murder our own futures. First up, we have the cynical wit, who takes the form of a jester king. Next is the hunger, this massive cosmic mind hiding behind a plague doctor's mask. And third is the small, which is this grotesque truth-telling monster. For philosophy students, or really anyone interested in human psychology, these 3 entities are absolutely brilliant metaphors for how chasing absolute stability totally corrupts our creative potential.
Parable 1. The Jester King's Cynicism.
Our descent begins with the first phantom. We're looking at a proud monarch who decided to build a fortress upon the very highest peak of tradition, just to avoid the rot of the present. This is the feast of the Jester King. Imagine a ruler who is so completely disgusted by the unpredictable, changing world outside that he decides to just wall himself off entirely. He's seeking perfection in the past because, well, the present is just too messy to handle. The crucial takeaway here is what the king threw away. He completely discarded his vital Streben. Remember, Streben is Fichte's term for that active ambition, that continuous striving of the human spirit. By locking himself away, the king traded his vital life force for bitter detachment. He gave up on building a new future to fiercely guard a stagnant past.
Now picture a traveler in a jester's motley slipping past the guards one evening. He sits right at the king's right hand and starts whispering these biting ironies. He tells the king that every noble law he decrees is literally just an echo whispered into an empty grave. This jester represents the cynical wit. His bitter laughter reduces every noble striving of the absolute I into a pathetic joke. He mocks the very idea of a zenith. And the real tragedy, the king actually agrees with him, laughing bitterly at the foolishness of the living.
The result of all this cynicism is total, catastrophic collapse. By wearing his ancestors' warrior spirit like an ossuary skin and constantly mocking tomorrow, the king successfully stabilized his realm. But he did it by turning his own heart to ash. When winter finally comes, he looks down and realizes the jester has vanished. He is completely alone. He's become a god of carrion, ruling over nothing but dead memories on a throne of dust. It perfectly illustrates how the decline of active ambition, when you replace it with cynical mockery, leaves you with absolutely nothing.
Parable 2. The Void of Perfect Data.
Okay, we now enter the laboratory of nothingness. Inside, there's a dying scholar using ossified dogmas to map the stars, just desperately trying to mend his crumbling reality. And looming over him is our second phantom, the hunger. Picture this colossal cosmic mind wearing a bone-white plague doctor's mask. The contrast here is wild. On one side, you have living worlds, vital blood, existential dread, the unavoidable friction of life.
The hunger treats all of this living messiness as a symptom of a cosmic rot that has to be cured, and his solution, the void of perfect data. It promises to cure the scholar's existential dread by ripping out his bleeding, feeling heart and replacing it with an unyielding ledger of clinical diagnoses and freezing data. It literally wants to consume life to achieve a static, dead perfection.
Section 4. Shadows of Suppressed Futures.
But right as this cosmic physician begins his clinical incision to cure the scholar and stabilize his world, the third phantom crawls out from the peripheral dark. And this is where we see the explosive consequences of suppressing the future. This is the Small, a grotesque, multi-legged monstrosity that forcefully absorbs the metaphysical weight of what we could have been. It is the literal embodiment of a murdered future. Driven by this insatiable urge to just speak things as they truly are, it violently rips away the shadows of both the fading last man of complacency and the rising potential of the Übermensch. By absorbing all that suppressed potential, it swells instantly into a towering, misshapen colossus of pure negation.
Let's track this terrifying escalation, because it proves exactly what goes wrong when you prioritize absolute stability over human potential. First, the monster creeps into the sterile chamber, but it doesn't attack the doctor. Instead, it reaches into the corner and swallows the shadow of a young pioneer who dreamed of inventing a new language. It literally consumes the future's potential. Because of that, it grows so massive, it shatters the laboratory walls. And finally, the scholar, who really just wanted safety and stability, is petrified into a living statue of parchment, while the cosmic physician just quietly records the exact dimensions of the wreckage.
Section 5. The collapse into static regret.
So this brings us to the inevitable collapse. The truth-telling monster of your own suppressed future will inevitably expand until it becomes the very grave that buries you. You simply cannot murder your own future without that void eventually swallowing your present. While the sovereign views the zenith as a demand to create anew, really embracing Fichte's absolute I, those who reject the innovation of the living suffer a truly grim fate. By following the creed of negation, they become nothing more than monuments of static regret. They turn into smiling corpses, living statues trapped entirely in a hollow, frozen void of their own making. Seeking stability literally killed their human potential.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought from today's explainer. Look closely at your own life and the systems we build around us. Are you currently trading your potential, your vital, messy, beautiful striving, for the cold comfort of a permanent punchline? Are you sacrificing the active ambition of your absolute I just to feel safe in a sterile, predictable void? Think back to the parables of the Jester King and the Plague Doctor. Don't let your suppressed future become the monster that turns you into a monument of static regret. Keep striving.